One man, worshipped by hundreds of millions,
feared by every single one of them.
he turned the crumbling empire into a superpower and filled it with graves. So how does the son of a drunk cobbler from a forgotten corner of Georgia become the most powerful and most deadly ruler in modern history?
Josip Djugashvili was born in 1878 in Gori, Georgia, then a remote province of the Russian Empire.
His father was a violent alcoholic. His childhood was defined by poverty, beatings, and survival. But the boy was brilliant. He won a scholarship to an Orthodox seminary in Tbilisi, one of the most prestigious schools in the region. He didn't become a priest. He became a revolutionary. By his early 20s, he had joined the Bolsheviks, the radical communist movement led by Vladimir Lenin. He organized strikes, robbed banks to fund the cause, and survived multiple arrests and exiles to Siberia. Each time, he escaped. Each time, he came back harder. He took a new name, Stalin. In Russian, Man of Steel. When Lenin died in 1924, the Soviet Union had no clear successor. Stalin moved quietly, methodically. While rivals like Leon Trotsky, the brilliant, charismatic war hero, made speeches and wrote manifestos, Stalin worked the machinery of the Communist Party. He appointed loyalists, he built alliances, he collected secrets, then he used them. One by one, his rivals were expelled from the party, exiled, or simply disappeared. By 1929, Stalin stood alone at the top of the Soviet Union. He was 50 years old. He had never commanded an army. He had never run a government. He had simply outlasted every single person who stood between him and power. Stalin's first target was the Soviet economy, and he hit it with brutal force. The USSR in 1929 was still largely agricultural, a nation of peasants using wooden plows. Stalin's answer was rapid industrialization, state-controlled 5-year plans that transformed the Soviet Union at a speed the world had never seen. Steel mills, coal mines, factories, power plants, railways cutting across thousands of miles of untamed wilderness. Within a decade, the Soviet Union had become an industrial power, capable of matching Germany and the United States. He also launched forced collectivization, seizing private farms and merging them into state-controlled collectives. And here is where accomplishment and atrocity blur together. In Ukraine alone, the forced seizure of grain caused a famine so catastrophic it has its own name, the Holodomor, or death by hunger. Estimates suggest between 3.5 and 7 million Ukrainians starved to death in a single year. Stalin called it necessary. He called it progress. But if you crossed Stalin, or if he simply decided you had, there was no appeal, no trial that mattered, no mercy. Between 1936 and 1938, Stalin launched what became known as the Great Terror. He turned on his own people, his own party, his own generals. Anyone suspected of disloyalty, real or imagined, was arrested, interrogated, forced to confess to crimes they never committed, then shot or sent to the Gulag. The Gulag, the Soviet forced labor camp system, held millions at its peak. Prisoners worked in impossible conditions, Siberian winters, starvation rations, exhaustion. Historians estimate that between 15 and 20 million people passed through the Gulag system during Stalin's rule. Millions never came home. The purges reached the military. Stalin executed 3 of his 5 top marshals and over 35,000 military officers, gutting the Soviet army of its most experienced commanders on the eve of the deadliest war in history. It was a decision that would nearly cost him everything. In June 1941, Adolf Hitler launched the largest military invasion in history. 3 million soldiers crashing across the Soviet border. Stalin was caught off guard, completely. In the first weeks, the Red Army collapsed. Millions were captured. Stalin reportedly suffered a breakdown and went silent for days. But he recovered, and what followed became the defining chapter of his rule. Stalin dug in. He rallied the Soviet people with a message of survival, calling it the Great Patriotic War. He moved entire factories east, beyond the Ural Mountains, out of German reach. And he kept producing tanks, guns, and planes. while the front lines bled. The Battle of Stalingrad, fought block by block, building by building, became the turning point of World War II. The Soviets lost over 1 million soldiers in that battle alone. But they won. By 1945, the Red Army had fought its way from the gates of Moscow to the streets of Berlin. No country in history had suffered more to win a war, and no leader had demanded more of his people to do it. Joseph Stalin died on March 5, 1953. Millions of Soviet citizens wept in the streets. Genuinely. He had been their father, their protector, the man who beat Hitler. And he had also been the man who ordered the deaths of an estimated 20 million of his own people, through executions, engineered famines, and forced labor. He industrialized a nation. He won the most destructive war in history. He turned a backward empire into a nuclear superpower that would challenge the United States for the next half-century. And he did all of it, standing on a mountain of human bones. The question history cannot answer, and perhaps never will, is whether any of it was worth the cost. Stalin once said, "A single death is a tragedy. 1 million deaths is a statistic." He proved he believed it. He reshaped borders, rebuilt economies, defeated empires, and left a legacy so complicated that historians still argue about it today. Because the same man who saved his country from Hitler's armies also built the system that imprisoned and killed millions of his own people. So the question is whether leader achieves greatness at that cost. Is it greatness at all?